Hello dear chess enthusiasts and welcome back to our exciting journey through the world of chess. This video is episode 3 of our series Grandmasters vs Amateurs. And here we are going to take a look at a game played between an amateur who was incredibly strong with 2295 in his prime, so didn't manage to become an FM as it seems. And the black player is Grandmaster Alon Greenfeld, and as you can see on the rating graph from the FIDE side, which I've included here, the Grandmaster isn't in his prime anymore, but still an incredibly strong player. And guys, try to focus because I will ask you for your opinion in an important position. So let's go to the game. White plays the English opening, so first c4, and black responds with knight to f6. And now white has a wide choice of second moves, for example d4, transposing into this d4, c4 structures. But the amateur decided to play knight to c3, and black continued with transposing into the symmetrical variation of the English, symmetrical because of c4 and c5. White plays the very typical knight to f3, and black continues with knight c6. And now the position is completely symmetrical, and white usually tries to break this with d4, one of the ways to break it. And after c takes d4, knight takes d4, white centralized the knight. It moved from f3 to d4, but also black has good responses such as e6, which was played in the game. So now we arrive at a very critical point because white has to decide what he is doing and how he's going to continue. White could play a3, which became popular in the 90s. He could also play g3, develop the bishop to g2, and put pressure along the diagonal, as pointed out. Then might follow queen to b6, knight db5, because the knight was under attack, and so on. So let's go back. Instead, white chose a tricky line with knight d to b5, and the idea is to jump right into d6 and check black. So black should either play d6 or the game move d5. And now we can see that c7 might be a sort of a weakness, and therefore bishop f4 is the main move here. And now I would like you to evaluate the position and let me know in the comment section what you think about this and how black should react after bishop f4. So pause the video, write down your thoughts, let me know, and then continue this. So let's take a look at bishop to f4 and how to counter it. It's not forced to play e5, but it's probably the most reliable answer, and the game might continue. C takes d5 and e takes f4, d takes c3, with a very interesting position, and you can play this on. It's a completely different game. But let's go back and see what black could do instead after bishop f4, instead of e5, of course. So there is this d4 move, and it's very tricky because after knight c7 check, king e7, the position looks very bad for black, but it's not that bad, and this is very surprising. So if white decides to take on a8, he is running into d takes c3, queen exchange, and the knight might have issues because as soon as it comes to c7, there is this knight h5 idea, and now the defender, the bishop on f4, must move, and it's not a good position. Let's say bishop g3, knight takes g3, h takes g3, and now the defender is gone. You could take on c7, but you can also play this intermediate move, c takes b2, rook d1 check, and king takes c7. And as you can see, black has this knight and this bishop for this rook, and also this pawn. So the position is very strange. Therefore, white should avoid this and instead not take on a8, but play knight 3 to b5. And now white is superbly developed. The white king is safe, so black might be in trouble. But now let's go back. C takes d5, and this move is very risky because if you choose this setup, you should really go for this bishop f4 idea. And according to literature and Ribley, Grandmaster Ribley, this position is very drawish due to the forced variation after e5. But the white player, the amateur here, decided to take on d5. Now comes knight takes d5, and this is another critical moment. The grandmaster, the black player, Alon Greenfeld, had to evaluate the upcoming position correctly. e4. What's the idea? Get rid of the knight from the d file here, and then exchange queens, and black cannot castle anymore. So let's see what happens. Knight takes c3, queen takes d8 check, king takes d8. White managed to reach the objective that black cannot castle anymore. However, with the material after b takes c3, it's very unlikely that white is going to checkmate the king in the center. So it doesn't really matter that the king cannot castle anymore. And now the thing is, you should evaluate this position correctly. And one thing which you should see is this semi-open b file. Why is it semi-open? The white b pawn is missing and there's a black b pawn. So half of the pawns are gone, it's semi-open. And also this semi-open c file. The black c pawn is gone, white c pawn is still here. And let's see what black is playing here. Bishop c5. And now we see this file also against the king. White plays bishop to f4, probably to provoke e5. And black plays e5, and now comes rook d1 check, an intermediate move. So before dropping back with the bishop on f4, white is checking with rook to d1. Now black plays bishop to d7, and after bishop to d7, you can see that black is not in trouble at all. It's rather black who is playing for a win and not white. Now a good move which would keep white in the game with a slightly worse position is a move like bishop to c1 or bishop to g3. Instead, white chose rook to d5. And now white is already losing a pawn after bishop takes f7. Bishop takes f2, check, sorry. King takes f2, e takes f4. Now black is 1 pawn up. It's 6 pawns against 5 pawns. And white should really fight to get it back. So play something like knight to d6. Double attack against the b7 pawn here and the f7 pawn here. But he should also watch out for this bishop e6 move, which would attack the rook at some point. Not right now, but at some point. So let's go back and see what white played. White played bishop to e2. And the idea is pretty simple. Doubling the rooks and put pressure on this bishop, which would be difficult to defend only with a move like knight to b8. So therefore black sees this and plays king to e7, because after rook hd1 the bishop can just move away, let's say bishop e6, and this move is putting pressure on the a2 pawn. Let me remind you, white is already one pawn down. Being a second pawn down might be already game over for sure. And after bishop e6 you should also realize something else. White has no good entry points for the rooks. So this pawn, which was given up by white, was in order to gain the d-file, but the d-file seems not to be worth much because it cannot be penetrated. So rook 5 to d2 in order to defend the a2 pawn. Then comes rook h d8. White is down material, so what is black trying to do? He is trying to exchange pieces, and this is one of the general rules of chess. If you are up material, try to exchange pieces, keep your pawns. So knight d6 played. White does not want to exchange pieces. And now the f7 pawn is defended, and the issue with the knight attacking b7 can be dealt with pawn to b6, and it looks like it's weakening the white squares. So white plays bishop to a6. However, black has no issues at all. Black continues with knight to e5. After knight to e5, white might have some worries because of this check. Not maybe now, but later. So h3, controlling this g4 square, but it's a very slow move. And black plays rook d7. What is the idea of rook d7? Very simple. Black wants to get to the c file, but unfortunately c8, this square here, is controlled by the bishop on a6. So instead, black just plays rook to d7, and then came rook d4. And by the way, black has no worries after knight f5 check because of bishop takes f5, e takes f5, and rook takes d2. White managed to exchange a lot of material, and these pawns are very weak. White is winning here. Losing here, sorry. Black is winning. So let's go back. So white plays rook to d4, and now black just wants to get rid of this knight f5 move and plays g6. Now the bishop on e6 is also free to capture on a2 because it's not needed on e6 anymore. It doesn't need to guard f5. So white plays a4, and now comes the move rook to c7, and the bishop on a6 is not hitting the rook. So black just needed two moves to circumvent this bishop a6 move with rook d7, rook c7, and get the very active rook on the c file. So knight to b5, defending the pawn on c3 and also attacking the rook on c7. So therefore black must move the rook, rook c5, bishop b7, attacking the rook, rook attacks the bishop, bishop moves back. So white did not achieve much, and black now plays bishop to c4. He's really keen on eliminating this knight which is defending the c3 pawn. Rook 1 to d2 because there is not much what white could do, and now comes the execution of the idea. Bishop takes b5, bishop takes b5, and rook takes c3. So black is just a second pawn up. And now white continues, although white is completely lost, with rook d5, attacking this knight, but black has no issues. He can just play f6, and the knight on e5 is well protected, while also the knight is protecting this d7 square. So black is happy. Rook to d6. And now, as I mentioned, black wants to exchange material because he's material up. So he wants to exchange his pieces. Rook b c8 with the idea of rook to c2. White plays bishop to d7. This is a last try, but there comes rook 8 to c7. Now attacking the bishop, so the bishop has to move. Bishop to g4. And white resigned after rook c2. And why did white resign? He cannot really take here, because then the rook is just being taken. It's check, so the king has to move. And this rook cannot be put in between, because it's undefended then. So this doesn't work. The king has to move, and yet the rook is taken because it's not defended anymore. Next move is probably something like knight takes g4 and black is up a rook. So what are the alternatives? There aren't any alternatives. I don't see anything here. And I think resigning at this point is completely fine. I hope you liked the video and enjoyed the game. If you did so, feel free to like or leave a sub. And if you want to continue watching our series, here's the playlist. See you.